Everybody, so here we have the Aldi mixer, and you can see it's back in one piece again, and you may be able to see I've done some modifications to it, obviously for better ventilation, for better cooling, but not just that. Have a listen. That is the sound of a different motor in this unit. I have successfully changed out the motor in this for one out of a 15.6 volt Dustbuster vacuum cleaner. The idea was to get a motor that has a higher winding count. That way it can withstand the demands of this mixer a lot better than the original motor that was in it. So here's some footage of the motor swap. Okay, so I went in and took the motor off of this little bracket. So this is actually a 550 size motor. And if you have a listen, you hear the noise that the bearings are making. It didn't do that until I had used it a bit. So I think the back bearing is actually dry, because the front one does have some oil on it. But yeah, this thing, this poor motor definitely got overworked for its application. And I'm looking inside here. There's definitely a lot of carbon buildup on the back of the windings. The brushes don't look really worn at all. They're barely broke in, but this thing was pulling some serious current, because it was nearly, I mean, considering the RPM that this motor is probably rated for, it was probably closer to stall than, yeah, because, I mean, it was being overworked again. I mean, the only gear reduction was through this worm gear to turn these two wheels that turn the whisk. So, again, bad choice of motor by the manufacturer. That was the error they made with this product. Again, bad choice of motor. Otherwise, it sounds like it's pretty well built. Okay, so here we're looking at the remains of a motor and fan assembly out of a cordless vacuum cleaner. I think it's a Black & Decker Dustbuster or something like that. And the thing about it is it ran on a higher voltage. So this motor would spin at a higher RPM at a higher voltage. It's a 540 or 550 size motor. Thing is, I gotta try to get this fan blade off of here. But once I get this out of here, I'll get you another look at it. Okay, so we got the little fan blade off of there. You may notice right away this motor has a long shaft on it, but it looks like it's the right thickness shaft. So let's get this motor out here and have a look at it. Okay, so a little dusty because it's a vacuum cleaner, but a couple of nice things I'm seeing here. For one, you see the windings on this look like they're a little bit thinner, so this definitely is a higher voltage motor. But more importantly, this motor has a fan blade on it, whereas the one out of the mixer did not. So the fan blade definitely does make a difference for sure. So although this motor is shorter, because this is a 540 and this is a 550, this one here may work. We'll just have to get this worm gear off of here, and we may have to cut this shaft down to size a little bit on this motor. So I'll put them side by side again in case I didn't get a good look. But there are the two motors side by side. You can see the shaft on this one is quite longer. But probably not the end of the world. Like I said, I could probably cut this shaft down to size if necessary. Now, if the mixer has enough room in the front of it, it wouldn't be a big deal, but I'm not sure if there's enough room in here to accommodate it. So anyways, okay everybody, so I have successfully managed to transfer over the worm gear from the original motor out of that mixer to this motor. It involved the process of putting both of these motors in the freezer to get them nice and cold, and I let them in there overnight. And then once I was ready to attempt the swap, I pulled this motor out of the freezer, and of course at the time it still had the worm gear on it, and I took a lighter and a candle to act as a source of flame for heat, and I superheated this brass piece. That's why it's all black. It's got soot on it, and it was quite a process of getting it off of this one. And once I got it off, putting it on this motor was a lot easier. It was a lot easier to put on than it was to take off. So took this motor out of the freezer and superheated this brass fitting, and I was able to tap it into place. And I had also used my Sawzall to cut down the length of the shaft to better match the size of the original. And for example, just for a test fit here, you can see how the motor sits right in here, and the worm drive of course turns these beaters. And one thing I'm just now noticing is when I put this back together permanently, I think these need to be lined up a certain way. You see these holes here? And what we have to do is we have to make sure that, as you can see, they're in there just like that. Just have to make sure that they don't obstruct each other, or don't hit each other rather, when we spin the motor shaft. Okay, one thing I should note is this motor here is a 540 size motor, not a 550, so it's a tad smaller. Also, it's a different brand. And because this hole here is a little bit different spot, the way this thing used to work is there was a notch in this bottom plastic piece that would hold the motor in place. But with that gone now, we have to do things a little bit differently. So what I did is I drilled, I'm going to drill a small hole right there to accommodate for a screw. That way when I put this back together like this, I can then attach a screw right there to hold the motor in place. Another thing I might go ahead and do is get the Sharpie again, and let's mark the spots at least in half of this casing, the top half at least. That way the motor can actually breathe. That's another, I guess I can say, oversight of this product. Not only did the motor they choose was not the proper one for the application, it was a high-speed, low-torque type motor with no cooling fan. They also did not mold the plastic to accommodate for extra cooling. So we're going to try to fix that. So I'm going to do that off camera actually. So I'll get that done, and another thing I'll need to do off camera is transfer over these leads. I'll have to desolder them from this motor and solder them up to this motor. And before I throw this together, I'm going to keep these beaters in there. That way when I throw this together, I'll make sure that the beaters are properly aligned, because it They do need to be properly aligned, otherwise they will make contact, and we don't need that. So, one thing I'd like to show you is, I don't know how well this will pick up on video, but so if you look inside this motor here, the one that was original from the mixer, I don't know if you can see how well you can see this or not, but we actually may look to the front of the motor instead. So you may be able to see a difference in the windings in these motors. So the motor that came out of the mixer has thicker windings with fewer turns. So thicker gauge wire with fewer turns. And this motor that came out of the Dustbuster has thinner wire but a lot more turns. As a matter of fact, the motor that came out of that vacuum cleaner used to run, or at least the vacuum cleaner voltage was 15.6 volts, so more than double what this mixer runs on. So the idea is we'll get fewer RPMs, it won't spin so fast, but we should have more torque available. At least that's the idea. I wanted to choose a motor that was sort of, half and half. I mean, has some speed but also have better torque that this mixer needs. So the motor that came out of that mixer is some off-brand. I do not think it is a Mabuchi motor. I think it's some off-brand motor. It says GM RS550-18 on it. Not sure how well this will pick up on camera, but here we are. GM RS550-18. That 18 might represent the number of turns this motor has. It might be an 18-turn motor, which is not the best choice for something like this. This would be good for a fast RC car, maybe. Matter of fact, I think the motor in my Traxxas Stampede is either a 16 or 18 turn armature. Yeah, I'm old school. I don't use a brushless motor in it. I use an old school brush motor. Matter of fact, I have a whole collection of these motors that some of them I've harvested the armatures out of, and the motor that's on my Traxxas Stampede is a rebuildable one. You can replace the brushes and you can replace the armature, all that good stuff in it. So this motor here is a Johnson electric motor. So Johnson is actually a name brand motor. You would find these in stuff ranging from vacuum cleaners to drills to whatever. I mean, Johnson, I've hacked away at a lot of stuff over the years, taking stuff apart, and Johnson is a pretty common name, at least from my experience. So what I'll do is, one thing before I throw this thing together is I'll oil up the bearings, both of them, the way they're nice and oiled up, and then of course I'll throw this thing back together and we'll see how it does. Okay, so I got the replacement motor installed into its little carriage, if you want to call it that, and I got the little beaters aligned up properly so that way they mesh with each other but they don't hit each other. So I'm going to pull them out because we're going to pull them out in order to put this unit back together. So there's a better look at the motor installed into the little frame with the worm drive and the two gears that spin the respective whisk. So now it is a matter of putting this thing back together. And it's going to take me a minute to remember exactly how it went together. So I'm going to put all the parts here side by side and recall from memory how this thing went together. Okay, so I got it almost back together. I still got the front and back off of it so we can see the internals. So let's go ahead and start it up. Now it may sound like the motor that's in there is actually spinning faster, but it's actually not. Now, of course, I don't recommend that you do this, but I mean, you can see I can slow it down considerably in first speed. But when I ramp it up, I mean, it's hard to even, when it's in high speed, it's hard to even slow it down. And that's on one bar. So I'll have to go back and review my previous footage. And you'll hear the sound of the motor. The motor sounds like it's not spinning as fast as this one. However, it's actually the opposite. Because when we go back and look at the original footage, I'm pretty sure these beaters will be spinning considerably faster with the previous motor. So, one thing I should note, despite artificially putting load on this thing, this motor don't smell like it's burning up like the previous one did. And I can actually feel heat in there, and when this thing runs, there's a considerable amount of air blowing around inside this thing from the fan that's in that motor. So that's one thing that's definitely helping this thing out, is that fan. It blows air all inside this thing. And I might end up actually modding this thing a little further. I may see, it looks like, in fact, if we take this off the front of here, we even have like a little vent. So it's like, okay, what was the purpose of that to begin with? Yeah, guys, it's definitely spinning. The beaters are definitely spinning slower than they were with the previous motor. Okay, so this actual piece here kind of has to pop on there to hold this piece down, apparently. But what I can do at a later time is I could drill some holes in this to help ventilate it better, but I think this thing's going to work better. At the least, it will be better on battery, because this motor has a larger count of windings, so that should definitely give it a little more torque, low-end torque, than the previous one. I mean, the previous one had low-end torque, but it was pulling a huge amount of amps, and it was killing the battery fast. So the ultimate test for this thing will be next time I make either zucchini bread or cookies, or something like that. I'll just leave this off for now, because to be honest, next time I use this thing, I'm going to probably run it with the back off, just to make sure that nothing is going wrong inside there. So either next time I make zucchini bread, cookies, or even chicken and dumplings, because I have to mix up the batter for the dumplings with a mixer. So we'll put this thing to the test. So anyways, that wraps up this portion of the video modifying this thing. So basically we've just replaced the motor in the thing. So, anyways, hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. Hey everybody. Thanks for taking the time to watch this video from Cuckoo channel. If this is your first time, please subscribe to the channel and be sure to tick the bell so we get notified of new video posts. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, leave a comment, and share this video as well as the channel with your friends and get the word out. Also, I have a second channel, that's CubeComp MTDX. Over there you'll find videos about thunderstorms and weather, cycling, and videos about me personally. Feel free to subscribe over there as well if you like. Again, I really hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you so much for your support.